Good evening, my free sisters. I am so excited to have you. We're at the 5th day of Freedom Week, the 5th day. Believe it, we are almost there. Now, as many of you know, we had some tech difficulty last night due to a Facebook glitch, and we nearly have some of that today. But we have pressed on. Last night we pressed on and we received a powerful word from Chaplain Yola St. Hilaire and Dr. Tansy Chandler. I don't know about you, but when I heard I'm preaching from the pit, I said, self, you better buckle your seatbelt. It is about to get real. She talked about meekness is power under restraint, my word. And then we got the 4 steps to forging your own identity. Spiritual assertiveness, believing in your gift, being able to stand alone, and being honest about who you are. I was blessed beyond measure, and I know there is still more to come. So let's go ahead and pray so we can jump right in. Heavenly Father, we have come as women ready to be free. We are ready to be free and free indeed. So we ask, Lord, that you will pour out your spirit like never before. Be with our speakers today. Be with those of us who are tasked with planning and managing, and then be with every heart who is hearing now or later, Lord, as they listen to recording. Let your word go forth with power and authority so that hearts are changed and chains are broken. This I pray in Jesus' name, amen. Now, this is one of my favorite parts of the program. I gotta admit, I enjoy this so much. I feel like Santa Claus. It's giveaway time. And today is particularly special because we have giveaways from not one, but 2 sponsors. Our first sponsor is Chaplain Adrian T. Benton. And this giveaway is exciting because it's literally brand new. Chaplain Benton has written a self-guided journal called For the Fear, a greater force of fear. This journal is for anyone who has ever felt like a failure and thought about giving up, and that's all of us. The book will launch in November, so 3 fortunate ladies will be among the first to receive this first edition signed copy hot off the press. So let's see who is going to be the 3 to receive this amazing gift. I keep praying not to look. Don't look. All right. I got one name. Let's see who we have here. Stephanie Baldwin. Stephanie Baldwin is getting one of the journals. Let's see who else. All right. We have Gay Castell. Gay Castell. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Gay Castell. And one more lady getting a journal, a brand new journal. We have Stacy Bradbury. Those 3 ladies are winning a journal. And we thank Chaplain Benton for sponsoring that particular gift. But we have one more. Because we were talking about being strong. And let's be honest, sometimes the fortitude that we need to be strong are carbs. Let's be honest, ladies. Sometimes you just need a little something sweet to help you get through. And today we have something that's extra sweet for you. Our next sponsor is Shakia Crumby of Crumb Bites Delights. Now, yes, we're giving you something a little bit sugary and a little bit sweet, but guess what? It's still healthy because Shakia only makes vegan desserts. That's correct. Anything that you order from Crumb Bites Delights is going to be vegan, completely healthy for you, your children, and your family. So make sure you enjoy. So for this gift, Shakia is giving 12, a whole dozen vegan cinnamon rolls to somebody really, really special. And I have had these rolls. Amazing. So let's see who are going to get a dozen cinnamon rolls that you had better share with somebody. Don't eat them all by yourself now. Let's see. Celeste Williams. Celeste Williams is getting the cinnamon roll. So, ladies, if you heard your name called, we need you to go to the Facebook page. You need to message us with your name and your mailing address so we can get your prizes right out to you. So, again, Celeste Williams is getting a dozen vegan cinnamon rolls. Yummy. And Stacy Bradbury, Gay Castell, and Stephanie Baldwin are getting some journals. We are so excited. Now, we do need to mention that tonight our theme is curveballs. Curveballs. And those are the times when life catches you completely on the blind side. All of us have been there. You thought you had all your ducks in a row, everything together, and then life was like, aha, you should be so lucky. Well, tonight we have two women with us who have been there, done that, and gave the t-shirt back. Our first speaker, our first speaker, I had it right the first time. Our first speaker is Mrs. Judelia Medard-Santiesteban. I know, isn't that such a fancy name? Judelia Medard-Santiesteban is a health and family life education teacher on the island of St. Lucia. I told you, this is a global event. We got speakers from everywhere, sister girl. She holds a bachelor's degree in guidance and counseling from the Jamaica Theological Seminary. And she has written a book called My Heart is Not a Fridge. It is her first book in a series of books designed to empower and inform children. And she's going to be telling us about that book today, what inspired the book, what started the journey. You really want to hear this story. And our second speaker for tonight is Ketsia Gustav, affectionately known as K. Gus. Kay is a blogger, wife, mom, and most importantly, a free daughter of God. She was raised in a Haitian Seventh-day Adventist home and was baptized when she was in 9th grade. She completed her secondary education at Miami Union Academy, then matriculated through the University of Miami as a pre-medical student with a concentration in microbiology. Little did she know that life would take her on a much different path than she had planned. After completing her undergraduate degree, she decided to take a gap year before applying to medical school and fell in love with teaching children's science. She has been a science educator to middle schoolers ever since. In 2010, Ketsia married Jonathan Gustav, and together they decided that their marriage would be a light to help others navigate the ups and downs of love. In 2012, she began a blog on marriage and relationships, which later became Pure Couples. Today, she has a blog dedicated to helping women thrive in their romantic relationships, Evolving Wife. She has also launched a women's membership group called Evolving Sisters Lounge and a course to help women overcome people-pleasing and insecurity to develop boldness in relationships and faith. Good girl to real girl. She's a mother to two beautiful children, 5-year-old Vivian and 4-year-old Josiah, and she currently resides with her family in Miami, Florida. Now, we do want to give a trigger warning that tonight we will be discussing issues of rape, molestation, and trauma. For those who may find these topics triggering, we have someone on hand who can pray with you. Just call 256-229-2343. That number again is 256-229-2343. We are so excited for the blessing that we have in store. So without any further ado, we're going to go to our very first speaker, Mrs. Judelia Medard-Santiesteban.
Good evening, everyone, and greetings from St. Lucia. Thank you, Danielle, for your invitation. Thank you for listening and for saying yes to God and for holding and hosting Freedom Week, where we ladies can share, learn, and heal. It is my pleasure to speak with you on the topic, curveballs. She said, what? So I'll get right into my story. It was November 29th, 2007, and I had one senior English class. I taught English at the time. I had been correcting some essays when right in the middle of one of those essays, I was addressed by a female student, addressing me directly and expressing some emotional upheaval that she had been experiencing. I still remember how it began. It began, Miss, sometimes I feel And then she went on to express herself. And of course, just as tonight's theme suggests, I said to myself, she said, what? And that was surely a curveball for me. The content was serious enough to warrant an appointment with her. And so we set our date, and that date was November 29, 2007. And as we sat in the hall alone, she described the horror of being raped by a male friend that she had trusted. Uh, it had been reported, it was already reported, so she did not come to me to report the matter. What she had come to me for was support. And the perpetrator had died. So it means that there was no redress that could have been um, addressed through a court. So she did not come to me for that. She had come to me for support. And so we began to talk. We had a talk right there in the hall. And then guess what happened? The earth began to shake. The walls began to shake. There was an earthquake. As St. Lucia and some other Caribbean islands experienced an earthquake that day. I think it was a 7.4 magnitude earthquake. So we ran out of the hall. Of course, we had to leave the building. We had to go home. And truthfully, a few days later, things had settled down, and St. Lucia did experience some damage, but we were able to come back to school. And so we came back to school, and somehow, and this is where I failed, somehow I just never got back. We had not finished the conversation, and I just never got back to the student. And sometimes when I would look at her, I would see her in the school, she seemed fine. She seemed to be smiling. She seemed okay in my estimation, but it wasn't so. And because she was senior, she graduated. She went on to another school, and I only realized that something was wrong when one day I saw her out of school, and I looked at her to wave and to say hi, and she just walked right past me, head straight, eyes straight, and I could feel the whiff of anger following. And I thought to myself, well, what happened here? You know, what went wrong? Because I knew that we had always shared a warm relationship. And as I reflected, I realized that I would have failed this student. Perhaps I did not do enough. And so this went on for a few years. She would pass me straight. She would, we just were not talking. We were like strangers. It was like she didn't know me at all. And I must admit that that hurt. If you are a conscientious teacher, if you're a conscientious human being, that would hurt. And so a few years ago, even as I continued to teach and to hear similar stories, I realized that I needed to do something. I needed to do something that would minister to the hearts of students who were experiencing that sort of trauma. And so I wrote the book. This evening, I wanted us, now I was in my 20s when this happened. And now that I'm older and wiser, I can assure you that this would never happen again. And I am doing things differently. And so this evening, I would like to share with you how to be your sister's keeper. How to be your sister's keeper. So I'm going to go across to my screen right now. Can you see? Can you confirm with me whether you, okay. All right. Okay, so like I said, this was a curveball for me when it happened. It was unexpected, it was surprising, and it was disruptive. But I'd like I said, to share with you just 10 points on how you can never let that happen to you again, that you could never let your sister down like I did. And so I'd like you to turn with me to Job chapter 2, verses 11 to 13, as we explore some principles from God's word as to how we can be our sister's keeper. Now, when Job's three friends heard of all this evil that was come upon him, they came everyone from his own place. Eliphaz the Temanite, and Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite, for they had made an appointment together to come to mourn with him and to comfort him. And when they lifted up their eyes afar off and knew him not, they lifted up their voice and wept, and they rent everyone his mantle and sprinkled dust upon their heads toward heaven. So they sat down with him upon the ground 7 days and 7 nights, and none spake a word unto him, for they saw that his grief was very great. So the first point for tonight is that you should understand yourself. You know, Job 2 says, they came everyone from his own place. Tonight, what place are you coming from? And I'm not speaking of your literal address, of course. I'm talking about what psychological place are you coming from? What emotional place are you coming from? And we should understand ourselves. As D.L. Moody says, I have had more trouble with myself than any other man I have met. Tonight, I would like to encourage us to know and own our sexual experiences, to acknowledge and heal our own past trauma and experiences, to review and to rectify whether we have had any long-held premises and perceptions. So some of us may have held some victim-blaming philosophies. Perhaps the clothing is related to sexual assault, that somehow the victim was seductive and was asking for it. Some of us may even have some self-righteous positions. Do you secretly look down your nose in pity at women who have been violated, labeling them as damaged goods, while thanking God that this has never happened to you? Now, these feelings could be latent, but potent. So examine yourself even now. Now, in her book, Tiger, Margot, and this is a memoir, so I understood that this happened. Margot Fragoso describes her experience. I think that she had a relationship with a pedophile. She was sexually abused by a pedophile for many years. And as I read the book, and I explored how this could have happened, I realized that her mother had come from a very traumatic place. And because her mother had come from a very traumatic place, her mother was not able to be present. The mother was not able to be present for her daughter. And so the daughter herself became a victim. So it is very important that when we are being our sister's keeper, that we know what place that we are coming from. And as Heather Plett says, this is not easy work. We cannot do it if we are overly emotional ourselves, if we haven't done the hard work of looking into our own shadow. So, number 2, Job's friends. And they made an appointment together to come to sympathize with him and comfort him. So, what is number 2? We must make the time, quality time, not just a WhatsApp message, but quality time. And I know that this is the era of COVID-19, but people can tell even when we can't meet them face to face. We can make a call, we can do some kind of video call, and people can tell when we are making time. And so this time should be private, and your sister should have your undivided attention. Go to the person, make the time intimate and not impersonal. And remember that your goal is to sympathize and to comfort. Your sister will be able to tell if you are there just out of distracted curiosity to gather information. Number 3, mourn with those who mourn. And when they lifted up their eyes at a distance and did not recognize him, they raised their voices and wept. So, number 3, mourn with those who mourn. And so this evening, I want to say that we should be very, very careful with our body language, especially our micro expressions. I can pick up on micro expressions very, very easily. And I can tell when someone is phony or being phony. There are little smirks, there are little looks of disdain, there is silence. And of course, I know when I should never trust somebody again just by my interaction. So I want to say tonight that we should be very careful with our expressions and we should mirror affect. Your disposition must suit the situation. Of course, no one is asking you to weep and cry to the extent of Job's friends, but if your sister is recounting such an experience, chuckling, smirking, or laughing would be disturbing and inappropriate. The feedback of your attitude and reactions will contribute to feelings of self-worth and self-image in your sister. Um, Disgust, the research says, is the micro expression which is the easiest to identify. So let's watch out for that. Number 4, hold space and move at their pace. And then they sat down on the ground with him for 7 days and 7 nights. And what exactly does holding space mean? It means that we are willing to walk alongside another person on whatever journey, in whatever journey they're on. And so Debbie Hall says the true presence of being with another person carries with it a silent power to bear witness to a passage, to help carry an emotional burden, or to begin a healing process. And this is the power of presence. So just be there, just go and just be there. Number 5, watch your mouth, part 1. And perhaps this is one of the most important ones tonight. Psalm 39 and verse 1 says, I said I will take heed to my ways, that I sin not with my tongue. And so the first point is to avoid victim blaming and judgmental statements. For example, is those clothes you were wearing? Do not save information for future reproach. Refrain from being preachy. This is not about you. Avoid minimizing and invalidating statements, especially at least statements. Statements like, at least there was no penetration. You'll be okay. Nothing much happened. Avoid unsolicited and toxic advice. Avoid subtle questions that imply blame, disbelief, and disdain. For example, well, I don't understand how he could kiss you if your mouth was not open. Okay, so this is a question, but it implies that you do not believe what your sister is saying to you. Do not impose your faith. You should, unless you have a mutual understanding or share the faith of your sister, do not impose your faith, your religion, or lack of the aforementioned onto her. Be mindful of how you speak on God's behalf. Please do not be Job's friends. Be mindful of how you speak on God's behalf or saying what he is or isn't doing in your sister's life. God will speak for himself. And of course, don't force forgiveness. Forgiveness is healing, but premature or false forgiveness forced on a victim is even more damaging than the initial infraction. Suggest it gently. You may suggest it gently when you sense that your sister is ready to hear about it. Watch your mouth, part 2. Proverbs 11:13 says, a talebearer reveals secrets, but he that is of a faithful spirit conceals the matter. And so there's a song which says, I said I wasn't going to tell nobody, but I couldn't keep it to myself. Well, this song was about the gospel, but unfortunately, for many women are just like that, but it's not the gospel that they're talking about. And some of us just cannot keep confidences. In fact, even for me to do this program tonight, I felt that I had to ask the young lady first. I did not want her to be on Facebook, and I did not want her to come across this and to know that I was speaking about her, even if I would not mention her name, but I respect I respect her experience, and so I have her permission to be speaking tonight. Um, we should not gossip. We should not gossip. Do not gossip. Do not gossip also under the guise of prayer. Let's pray for, and of course, we spill the beans. The third point under this point is to avoid anonymous anecdotes. Depending on the size of the community and the context, everyone will decipher who you are talking about, even if you do not mention any names. So avoid anonymous anecdotes. Number 7, expect a range of emotions. Psalm 6 and verse 3 says, "My soul is in deep anguish. How long, Lord, how long?" And so we should expect all kinds of emotions from victims: shame, guilt, hurt, self-blame. Take none personal, but just be like a life raft. As they ride the waves of these emotions, just be like a raft with a life raft that they hold on to as they ride those waves. Number 8, be love. And you will notice that I didn't say to be loving. I said to be love, just to be love itself. 1 Corinthians chapter 13 and verse 2 says, "What if I could speak all languages of humans and even of angels? If I did not love others, I would be nothing more than a noisy gong or clanging cymbal." It is very possible to do all of what I have said. It is very possible to do the first 7 points, to practice and to be professional. But people can tell when you love them. They can tell when you're doing things out of rote, out of professionalism, or when you truly have a connection, or when you truly love them. And how can we do this? This is not something that we can force. This is not something that we can fake. We simply do this by inviting the source of love into our hearts, and that is Jesus Christ himself. So I just want to say that when someone loves you, you don't have to say it, but you can tell by the way they treat you. You can tell intuitively. Number 9. Number 9, be informed. Be informed about support services and groups in your area, hotlines and professional counseling in the event that you have to suggest professional help for your sister or to your sister. Acquaint yourself with general procedures. And remember that any decision is theirs. Number 10, always pray. You notice that in the picture of the left, this is a story of the men who lowered their friend through the roof so that Jesus could heal him. He was paralyzed. And so tonight I want to say that even if we are not imposing our faith onto our sisters, we can intercede on their behalf. We can pray for them. We can usher them into the presence of God and ourselves as well. Our prayer is also integral to asking for guidance from God as to what to do and how to love. And the song says, one of my favorite songs says, "I want my friends to pray for me, to bear my tempted soul above, and intercede with God for me. I need the prayers of those I love." So now that I know all of these things, and now that I'm older and wiser, I am able to understand how I hurt this student, of course, who is now a young lady. I hurt her, and I would do things differently as I am doing now. And I want to tell you that the research supports this. This is research done by in Australia by Believe Me Too. And they say that there is some evidence indicating that when young girls and women are believed and responded to in an appropriate manner following disclosure of sexual abuse, further intervention, such as the provision of counseling, is more likely to be successful. They also say that the study illustrated the potentially important role that negative disclosure play in generating persistent vulnerability in the survivor. Women encountering negative disclosure experiences reported an array of adverse psychosocial outcomes in their subsequent lives. So, what I understand from this is that we can make a difference. When our sisters come to us, our reactions, our attitudes, whether we believe and whether we support, makes a difference in terms of future mental illness, healing, and even the success of counseling. So, the story ends well because, like I said, I was very hurt. I was very hurt that I hurt somebody in that way. And so we have dialogued over the past few years, year or so. And I have her permission to share this conversation with you. I did ask her. I asked her how she felt. That was question number one. I asked, how did you feel when you came to speak to me? And she said, I was feeling very overwhelmed and emotional. I asked her, what did you expect from me? And she said, what I expected was a listening ear and to understand my emotions and to give me encouragement. And I asked her, how did she feel when I failed? And she said she felt empty because she had shared something personal. And she feared that I would have told other people because our connection died. And let me tell you, ladies, I never did. I had never shared it with anybody else. But it didn't matter that I did not share it with anybody else. What mattered is that she thought so. She thought so because the connection had died. I did not feed the trust that she had in me. And so if she thought so, we can't blame her. And then I asked her, what could I have done differently? And she said, the only thing you could have done differently was to stay in contact and don't disappear. And of course, I apologized again. I told her, I'm so sorry. And praise God, she has forgiven me. We speak now, we speak very well. And she said, all is forgiven. And so the story ends well. So your support can make a difference. Earlier on, Danielle mentioned the book. And yes, the book is called My Heart Is Not a Fridge. And it's a very short narrative poem about the difference that we can make as teachers, the difference that we can make as mothers, the difference that we can make as counselors, and even if we do not have those roles, the difference that you can make as a sister. So at the beginning of the book, the character's heart is like a fridge because she has all of these secrets tucked inside. And when she reports and she gets the right support from her mother, from her teacher, from her counselor, at the end of the book, her heart is a garden. And this is how it ends. She says, my heart is now a garden where beautiful things grow. I'm happy to have had Miss Dawn to show how things must go. So I want to encourage each one of us tonight to bring the dawn like Miss Dawn. And hopefully, when we encounter these curveballs, we will be ready to bat and ready to bat that ball right out of the stadium. So thank you, ladies, for listening. I have come to the end of my presentation. God bless you.
There's nothing left for me to do than to lift my hands and pray. 'Cause over and over again, thank you, Lord. Over and over again, day after day after day, over and over again. God shows me to love for all eternity, to love forevermore. My heart is so unworthy, so I bow before you, Lord. I'm grateful, Lord, that you chose me over and over again. In spite of all the things that I've done, yeah. Over and over again. God chose me. Pour out His mercy. Your mercy endures forever. Yeah. Pour out His grace. Thank you, Lord. There's nothing left for me. But lift my hands and pray. Just want to give you the praise, God. Over and over again. 'Cause over and over again. Over and over again. Yeah. God chose me. Yes, He did. God chose me. Over and over and over again. Yes, You did. God chose me. The extent of Your love amazes me. God chose me. My heart is overwhelmed. My heart is overwhelmed. God chose me. When I was at my lowest point, God chose me. That's when You chose me. That's when You chose me. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. And again, I want to welcome you all to Freedom Week. That first presentation was such a blessing. And I just feel honored to be here with you all tonight to share my story with you. And I just pray that you all are blessed and that pieces of my story resonate with you and that it gets you started on your own healing journey. So I'm going to share my screen with you guys. And share my presentation. So I want to give you guys, I want to start at the beginning of what I call my curveball moment. A few years ago, towards the end of 2017, I had an emotional breakdown. And it was something like a situation where it's
the straw that breaks the camel's back. At the time, I was balancing my two kids. My son was almost a year old, and we had an older daughter. And I was balancing that, being a full-time teacher and all of the responsibilities that come with that. And of course, being a wife and blogger. And I felt like I was failing at life. And on the outside, it looked like I was happy, I was smiling, I was writing articles every week, and I was ministering to people. But inside, I felt every single day that I was failing at life, failing my family, or falling short in terms of expectations at work, failing my students. And I was constantly criticizing myself, constantly telling myself, when are you going to get it together? Why can't you be a better person? Why can't you have it more together? Why can't you be one of those super women who handle everything with such grace and ease? Why can't that be you? Girl, you are a mess. And that was the continual voice inside my head every single day, until one Sunday afternoon, I just had a moment where I could feel myself giving up. And I had the thought, you know, if I was dead, I would be at peace, and I would not be in pain anymore, and I would no longer feel this way. And my family would probably be doing even better than what they are now, because I feel like I'm holding them back. And so I went home and I took the kids over to my husband and I said, you take over, I can't. And I locked myself up in our room and I stayed there the whole rest of the day. And I remember my husband telling me later on that he could feel the spirit of suicidal ideation on me that night. And he said, you need to find someone, you need to find a therapist to talk to. And so I spent the whole next day, I called off from work, and I spent the whole next day calling therapy practices to find someone who could help me figure out what's wrong with me and fix me, because I couldn't go on that way anymore. And so I found a therapist, and it's crazy because the moment she answered the phone, I had called her, left a message, she called me back. The moment I heard her voice, I just felt this sense of calm and peace come over me. And she asked me what was going on, and I told her, and she said, well, I'm no longer in Miami. I'm actually up in Central Florida, but I do teletherapy. So I signed up to see her. And that was the beginning of a journey for me that changed the trajectory of my life, and that has allowed my marriage to blossom in ways that I didn't realize that it needed. And so I want to share with you all tonight a few of the lessons that I've learned from that experience, because when I look back, there were a lot of things, a lot of hidden layers and different threads in the tapestry of my life leading up to that moment that caused me to have that breakdown. And I think some of those pieces are things that a lot of us as women raised in the church, we can resonate with, because we're all told a specific message. And once we have that lens, we interpret everything in our lives according to that message. So tonight we're talking about how to have a healthy marriage from unhealthy beginnings. So just want to give you a little background about me. I was raised Seventh-day Adventist in a Haitian family, so it was very conservative. And, you know, if you're Haitian, you know that we are very close-knit. Family is everything, and what your parents say goes, right? So I grew up the sibling of 2 sisters and 1 brother. So it was the 4 of us. And I was the good girl. I was the obedient child. I was the one who wanted to please everyone. And because my family had so much turmoil in it, there was a lot of arguing between my parents. There was a lot of physical altercations between my siblings and my parents. There was just a lot of stuff going on. And so I felt like if I was obedient enough and good enough and nice enough, I could be the glue that held my family together. And I think a lot of my journey as a person stemmed from that desire, that belief that if I am just good enough, everything around me will be okay too. So I was about in elementary school, 3rd or 4th grade, when I was molested by a family member. And I didn't realize it at the time, but that experience caused me to have a really deep sense of shame. And I just felt so dirty and used and ugly. And that added another layer to my desire to be good and to please others, because I wanted to run away as far as possible from that feeling of being dirty and being ugly. Now, at the time, I didn't know it, but it's only through months in therapy that I was able to realize this. So I got married in 2010. And before we got married, we did premarital counseling. We were constantly praying, having devotion over the phone. And we both came from families that were broken. My parents got divorced in 2007. So my senior year of college, they were divorced. And then later on that year is when I started dating my husband. And so my parents' legacy was constantly in my mind, and I wanted to be the one to do things differently for our family. I wanted to be an example, and my husband was the same. He grew up raised by his grandmother. Neither of his parents were in his life, and he wanted to be the father and the husband that he never got to see in his own family. So when we got married, we were like on a mission. We were super optimistic. And then we quickly realized that getting married is only the beginning of your growing pains when you are an adult in a relationship. When you say I do, a lot of times people think, wow, and they lived happily ever after. And we kind of preach it that way. But like I said, it's only the beginning. So now, after my breakdown and subsequent therapy experience, I shifted my focus a little bit. I still blog about relationships. I still talk about how to have a healthy marriage, but I really specifically focus on women who have gone through similar experiences as me, who struggle with insecurity and shame, and I help them have healthy, God-centered relationships. So I want to go through some myths really quickly that we tend to believe about marriage. And I'm not saying that these are like implicitly taught from the pulpit, but I believe that they are ideas, beliefs that we have simply because of the community that we grew up in. So the first myth I want to share with you is marriage is the pinnacle of a woman's experience. Once you get married, you live that happily ever after life. That's myth number one. Myth number two, having a family, kid, husband will give you a sense of purpose. It's kind of like this shift happens where once you get married, whatever life you had before that, you shift into having a new sense of purpose and a new sense of happiness, and that is all you need from there. And that's a myth. Myth number three, being a helpmate to your man will bring you fulfillment. And so this myth kind of ties into the idea that women, our role is to help uplift and ennoble our husbands, right? And for a long time in my marriage, I did that. You know, I tried to erase self as much as possible and cater to my husband and his goals and his dreams. But part of that breakdown process was me realizing that for a long time, I had been silent about my own goals, my own dreams, my own aspirations, and my own frustrations. I felt like I needed to be silenced in order for my husband and my family to thrive. I felt like the more I put myself on the back burner, the better it would be for them because I would make my life about them. And that was probably one of the biggest mistakes that I made, because in doing that, I was devaluing myself and I was invalidating my own identity as an individual. And I had to, with my therapist, she had to tell me, like, what do you want out of life? Make a list. Make a list of your short-term goals. Make a list of your long-term goals. And I had to really dig deep and think and think and realize, wow, a lot of stuff I had just put to the side because I thought to myself, I'm married now. So my life is all about my husband and my kids. And that's not how it's supposed to be. So as a result, you know, I think a lot of women get to this point in your marriage, especially like once you have kids and you realize, like, wow, there is literally no time for me to even sleep. There is no time for me to even be alone in the bathroom. There's this sense of disillusionment, like, wow, this is all my life is from now on. Like, that's all this is. And you kind of feel cheated and lied to a little bit. And I had that moment. I had several of those moments, in fact. And so as a result of that, when I would look at my husband, I would feel resentful. Like every time he would leave to go work on his own business endeavors, I felt like, wow, he's getting to live out his dream. What about my dreams? What about things I want to do? When am I going to start living my life? And it didn't matter how much he told me, babe, I'm doing this for us. Like, I am not doing this for myself. I'm going hard because I want our family to grow and I want us to prosper. But to me, I interpreted everything he said and did through the lens of, wow, so when am I going to have a chance? And so that resentment kind of built up in our relationship. And it caused me to be very irritable towards him. Any little thing, especially in the morning, I was sleep deprived and I was already feeling like I was stifled. And I was just very unhappy that whole year, 2017. And I would be really, really short-tempered with him at times. And it started to have this strain on our relationship because on one hand, he's trying to be as supportive as possible. He's trying to be patient with me because he knows I have it hard, you know, giving birth to 2 kids within the span of 2 years and then going back to work. It was a lot. It was a big transition. But at the same time, he needed me to be the partner that would encourage him when he felt down. But the relationship kind of became more focused on me and my emotions and my despair. And for the long term, that's not a really healthy way to relate to your partner. And so I'm so happy to say, like, as a result of being in therapy, I went first, and then we went as a couple. We were able to connect with each other on a much deeper level. And we came to realize that one of the key things missing from our relationship was honesty. And I don't mean honesty as far as like lying to each other, but honesty as far as being open and upfront about what we really wanted and how we really felt about everything. we both felt like we had to put up this facade and do certain things in order to keep the other person happy. And I'm going to tell you guys right now, your husband will not be able to make you happy. It's not a fair expectation to put on him, and it's literally impossible, because what I discovered is that I can only bring my existing joy and fulfillment to my marriage, and that is going to enhance my relationship with my husband. But an empty cup, what are you going to do with it? Right? So I was an empty cup, and not only was I an empty cup, but I was also draining my husband, who was trying to be a supportive partner, but also at the same time, certain needs weren't being met. He needed to be able to confide in me, and sometimes he felt like he couldn't because of the emotional state that I was in, right? And so that's why it's so important, and I make this the focus of my articles now, is that we as women need to figure out and be honest about what we really want out of life, especially as Christian women. I feel like we've been sold this dream of, if you are good enough, if you are pure enough, if you are virgin enough, you will become deserving of the happiest marriage and the happiest life, and you'll live happily ever after. And that's not what the Bible shows us, right? Job was blameless. God called Job blameless and upright, right? And yet he had so many curveballs. And I love that quote that was just on the screen where it said, what did it say? I literally sent a picture of it to my husband. It said, we must stop regarding unpleasant or unexpected things as interruptions of real life. The truth is that interruptions are real life. And so one of the things, not one of the things, I want to share with you guys how you can take steps to healing to have a thriving relationship, whether you are whether you haven't started healing yet, whether you are at the beginning of your healing process, whether you are single or married. The best time to start your healing journey is right now. And I want to go through these truths with you guys. Truth number one is that marriage is only the beginning of your growth. And I'll tell you right now, marriages that I see end, a lot of times it's because one or both of the people in it decided, I'm just going to stay right here. The way I am is good enough, and they are the problem, right? So marriage is going to take you being committed to your growth. And I remember those therapy sessions were $100 a piece, and that was on the low end of the spectrum. But every single session was so life-giving. I would gladly give more than $100 for the experience that I was able to have, for that journey that I was able to go on. Because a lot of people go through life kind of just existing, walking through like zombies, living by other people's expectations of them, and never stopping to ask themselves, is this the life I really want, right? So truth number one, marriage is only the beginning of your growth. Truth number two, growth will require your brokenness to be exposed. And I'll tell you guys right now, just because I blog about marriage does not mean that my marriage is perfect, all right? I don't need my marriage to be perfect. I do need it to be healthy. So when your brokenness is exposed, when you have disagreements with your partner, when you feel like, man, this relationship thing is so hard, that is exposing something in you that you can choose to grow on, right? And the thing about it is, it feels very uncomfortable. It feels like you're being torn apart. It doesn't feel nice. But when you commit to becoming the best version of yourself that you can, when that brokenness is exposed, instead of running away to hide, instead of blaming and pointing the finger, you have to be committed to growing and to evolving. Truth number 3, you can only bring your existing joy and fulfillment to your role as a wife and mother. And this is where resentment comes in, because when you expect your husband and your kids to make you happy and they can't, you will be disappointed and you will start to resent them, right? You'll start to resent the time that you can't spend alone. You'll start to resent the time that you have to spend catering to them. But when you come to the relationship already secured in your sense of purpose and who you are, knowing that this is the life that you want, knowing that there is space for you to exist as an individual and as a wife and as a mother, you can bring your awesomeness to your husband and you can help elevate him. You will bring your awesomeness to your kids and help them to develop into the human beings and citizens of society that this world needs. But when you are focused on just you and how you feel unhappy, and you will get to that place where you will resent them if you are not happy within yourself, and you will feel very disillusioned, and you will feel like, man, maybe this isn't for me after all, right? So you have to get to the root of your brokenness. You have to confront it and you have to grow. You have to heal, right? And so that's why, truth number 4, it is not my husband's job to make me happy. I remember watching this video by Will Smith where he said, I told Jada I'm retiring from trying to make her happy. And this is something that my husband told me too. He was like, look, I've been trying to make you happy, but it's not working. So let's go see a therapist. And that is what we need. And I always preach this. We need therapy. We need therapy. There is no shame in it. There is only growth and evolution and elevation if you choose to work on yourself. Working on yourself will never be a mistake, right? So truth number 5, you can only be an effective partner if you are secure in your own sense of individual identity, right? And this is one of the pet peeves that I have with the way some of our churches have taught us, is that we are taught that we must be completely erased. Our personality, our identity, you have to become less you in order to be more like Jesus, right? But that's not it. Jesus wants you to be more of you with his character. He still wants you to keep your personality. He created you that way. Your goals, your dreams, your aspirations, they make you who you are, right? So he's not asking us to give that up. We are just becoming a holier version of ourselves. So when we give up this belief that we must be erased, we must decrease in order for our husbands and our families to increase. When we give up that idea and we embrace the idea that together we can all grow, we can all thrive, this is when you can start to reclaim your identity and blossom. And so I'm going to go through these tips really quickly because I feel like I've been talking for a long time. Number 1 is to recognize your brokenness. When I had that moment, that emotional breakdown and that emotional numbness, I realized that something was broken in me and I needed to be fixed. I needed renewal. So you have to recognize your brokenness. All right. Now, here are some symptoms that you have brokenness that needs to be dealt with. If you are overly critical of yourself, if you are afraid to let people get too close to you because you feel like if this person saw how much of a mess I am, they would not like me that much, right? So you keep them at a distance. That's another symptom of brokenness that needs to be addressed. Self-sabotage. You want one thing, but your behaviors and your decisions are actually going to get you the opposite of what you want, right? And this is kind of like related to number 2. You want meaningful relationships, you want intimacy, but your behaviors push people away, right? That is self-sabotage. That is a clue that something in you is broken and Jesus wants to fix it. Number 4, deflecting compliments, where you can't stand anybody giving you a compliment because that's not how you see yourself. So you automatically reject it, right? Because your self-image is just so sabotaged by the enemy's lies that you can't fathom why somebody would give you a compliment, so you shoot it back to them, right? That is also a symptom that there is brokenness that needs to be addressed. So you got to deal with your brokenness at the roots. You got to be honest with yourself. And then you have to go on a journey where you figure out what's important to you. I had to sit down and make a list of my values to send to my therapist. And I realized I don't do anything on a daily basis that reflects these things. So she told me, Ketsia, you need to do more of what you like. And I was like, wow, that sounds so simple, but it's so hard for me to do. I will get up early and do anything for my kids, but get up early and give myself time for myself, very, very hard for me to do, right? So you have to figure out what's important to you and then align your day, align your schedule, align your decisions to that. Because we are unhappy when our values and goals are not aligned with our day-to-day life. That is what causes unhappiness. You want one thing, but your reality is completely different, right? That is what causes that distress and unhappiness. And I'm so happy that I was able to find my joy. My journey's not over. I'm still evolving. I'm still growing, right? I'm still trying to put my life completely in alignment with my values and trying to figure out what my values are. And that's okay. But step by step, in every season of your life, you want to have this conversation with yourself. What are my values? What are my goals? Is my life in alignment with that? Okay. And then finally, you want to be able to set boundaries in your life, right? With your husband, with your kids, with your church. You want to make sure that there is a space in your life where you exist as just yourself and not as somebody's wife, not as somebody's mom, not as somebody's church member or women's ministries director, but just as yourself. So boundaries. All right, this is the end of my talk. If you want to learn more about how you can heal and have thriving relationships, a thriving marriage, take your love to the next level, I want to invite you to join my tribe, evolvingwife.com. You can go ahead and sign up for my weekly newsletter. I also have a monthly membership group for women. And so if you just sign up at that website, you will be getting access to all my articles, my ebooks, and everything else that I'm going to be doing in the coming months. So thank you all so much for giving me this opportunity to present my story to you. And I'll see you guys in the Q&A. All right, let me stop sharing my screen. How do I do that? Stop share.
Did you all enjoy that amazing presentation? Oh my goodness. There were so many gems in what they both shared. Judelia telling us about how we can be there for our sisters, the steps we need to take. And then Kay coming along. For me to take away, working on yourself will never be a mistake. big, because we do, as women, so often we put ourselves to the back burner, and we do Jesus first, yourself last, and others in between, and we come dead last. And by the time we get to us, there's nothing left. I love how Lisa Nichols puts it. She says that when you're giving to others, you should only give from your saucer, never the cup. The cup is what you keep for yourself. Your cup is what keeps you full and abundant. And then what spills over from your cup, the overflow, that is what you share with others. So you're always full. There's always something that you have to give. I'm so grateful to Judelia, to Ketsia, and now we're going to move to our Q&A. If you haven't already registered, please do so. You'll get the Zoom link in your email. Come on over and join us. We're going to chat. We're going to ask questions. We're going to have a one-time interacting as sisters. So we will see you over there at the Q&A. Have a good one.
So I bow before you, Lord. I'm grateful, Lord, that you chose me over and over again. In spite of all the things that I've done, yeah. Over and over again. God chose me. Your mercy endures forever. Thank you, Lord. But lift my hands and pray. Just want to give you the praise, God. Over and over again. 'Cause over and over again. Over and over again. God chose me. Yes, He did. God chose me. Over and over and over again. Yes, You did. God chose me. He extended of your love, amazes me. God chose me. My heart is overwhelmed. My heart is overwhelmed. God chose me. When I was at my lowest point, God chose me. That's when You chose me. That's when You chose me. You chose to pursue me. God chose me. I love You, Lord. So I love You, Lord. God chose me.
Hello, ladies, and welcome to our Q&A. This is one of my, I love the giveaways. That's like my first favorite part. But then this is the second favorite part, because they get to talk to everybody and share and ask questions, and you can see everybody. So we're asking everyone to turn your cameras on, so we can see everybody who's here. Hello, hello.